Teen Beach Movie. Yeah, I know. It's been something you guys have been wanting me to review for a while now. I'm doing it. Y'all can relax. Can you believe this movie is 11 years old now? I just can't believe we've reached a point where there are Disney Channel products that were released after I stopped watching the network that are over the age of 10. That's extremely weird. Like Dog with the Blog turns 12 this year. That doesn't freak any of you out? But yeah, here we are. Teen Beach Movie is kind of a weird film for me because I totally remember when it came out as it was a really big event. But as I mentioned earlier, I just wasn't watching the network like that at the time. I do know that this movie, despite its old age now, has maintained a pretty big cult following. So when I finally decided to check it out, I was actually really excited. It's rare when I get to go into these movies that I review with having zero knowledge of them. And considering this movie became a franchise, that makes it even better. Plus, with me having zero nostalgia for it, that means that my opinion on it won't be biased. So, join me as I, Mr. Nostalgia, watch Teen Beach Movie for the first time and review it to see if it's truly deserving of its praise or if it's a product of people gassing up things from their childhood. Okay, so before I get started, I just wanted to break some stuff down. No, this isn't a sponsor, don't skip this, it's important. Considering that this is the first movie I've ever reviewed on this channel that's a part of a franchise, I decided to switch up my flow a little bit here. The goal is to not only review this movie, but to release a review on the sequel, hopefully, maybe a week after this one. On top of that, I plan on releasing a combined version of both of these reviews, plus bonus in-between content that can only be found in that version, which will no doubt extend the video's length past at least 1 hour, since you guys like them long videos. This format, if successful, will likely be how I handle Disney Channel original movies from now on. So if you want to see me make videos on the Cheetah Girls, High School Musical, or Camp Rock franchises, you better hit that subscribe button. Oh, wow! And also share this video around so I know there's an audience for it. Without any further ado, let's actually start talking about Teen Beach Movie now.
Welcome to a place where everyone's in tune. Like me. Like me. But just a little offbeat.
Are you serious?
No, I'm Tanner.
Remember that movie with the robot who taught the school to salsa dance and then went on to win the regional championship?
Yeah.
That makes more sense than this.
Hit the beat
You guys are strange. I like that.
in the Disney Channel original movie event.
I've never seen a chick quite like you.
Chick, really? Hold on while I lay some eggs.
Okay.
Teen Beach Movie. Premieres Friday, July 19th at 8/7 Central on Disney Channel.
Teen Beach Movie premiered on the Disney Channel on July 19th, 2013. This was one of Disney's many attempts to recreate the success they had with High School Musical. And I mean, you could say that this was a certain generation's High School Musical, so they did kind of succeed. It is kind of interesting though how every few years Disney will release that one DCOM that suddenly goes on to be the main DCOM franchise of a specific generation. In the early 2000s, it was the Cheetah Girls. In the mid-2000s, it was High School Musical. In the late 2000s, it was Camp Rock. And in the early to mid-2010s, it was Teen Beach Movie. And now you got stuff like Descendants and Zombies. Granted, I don't think any of these franchises managed to reach High School Musical level success, but it's hard to capture lightning in a bottle twice, or however the saying goes, I don't know. The fact that they managed to make multiple huge franchises pretty much one after the other alone is really impressive. Disney knew how to create those banger musical franchises, and Teen Beach Movie is no exception. Anywho, the script was written by Vince Marcello, Mark Landry, and Robert Horn, the latter of which is known for writing other Disney Channel movies like Oh, Sweet Neptune. It's okay, it doesn't always mean anything. It's all good. The movie is directed by Jeffrey Hornaday, who actually directed Geek Charming as well, a DCOM that I actually surprisingly enjoyed. Filming began in March 2012 in Puerto Rico, which cost Disney a pretty penny. The reported budget for this movie was $8 million, which at the time was their most expensive original movie to date. And honestly, you can see it while watching the movie. Not only is filming in Puerto Rico expensive, but there are shots in this movie that you just do not see in other DCOMs. I mean, this might be one of the few DCOMs to have underwater scenes, which I'm sure added to the complexity of its production. The surfing scenes in general are really well made, plus the set designs and hair and makeup took more time than usual since they had to mimic a certain decade. Couldn't just have these actors wearing anything. Lastly, and I'll touch on this later, but it really just looks like they actually tried while making this movie. Thought was put into this. It wasn't just a cash grab, and that is something I'll always respect. The movie centers around surfer teen couple Brady, played by Ross Lynch from Austin and Ally, and Mackenzie, aka Mac, played by Maya Mitchell from that one episode of Jessie. I knew she looked familiar. We're introduced to these characters during a long surfing montage, where to me it is implied that these two have known each other for a while. Just look at them. They look like the best of friends. Their chemistry is way too good to only know each other for a couple months, right? Just 60, maybe 61 measly days. I'm not tripping on this, right? Just keep that in mind. After a long day of surfing and almost kissing, the two teens walk into Mac's house, I'm assuming, and Mac mentions something about some news that she has to tell Brady. But before she gets the chance, Brady overhears his favorite movie, Wet Side Story, playing on the TV. Turns out Mac's grandfather was watching it, and Brady joins him. Brady and Mac's grandpa explain the plot and significance of this film to Mac, which to me implies that she has not watched the movie, or at least not the full thing. Remember this. Brady even starts explaining his favorite part to Mac, something that I'm sure Brady would have already told Mac if they had watched the movie earlier. That's just me though.
That's just me.
Mac's aunt pulls up, giving off similar vibes to Charlotte from Rugrats. She informs Mac that they will be leaving tomorrow, and Brady is very confused by this. Turns out the news that she meant to tell Brady earlier was that she's going to be moving to an expensive private school that presumably is nowhere near this area, and Mac was struggling hard to tell Brady because of how much fun they've been having. So yeah, in classic DCOM fashion, Mac seems to be missing a parent. And low-key, she might even be missing both. Her mom is confirmed dead in this movie, but her dad is just straight up never mentioned unless I missed some hidden Easter egg or something. Also important to note is that Mac's aunt is very anti-surfing, as she believes it's holding her back from reaching her true potential and destiny. So when Mac tries to explain to her aunt that she wants to stay an extra day to surf a big wave that she's been waiting for, she's kind of just like,
Don't care, stay mad.
Brady, rightfully so I guess, is pretty mad that Mac didn't tell him she was leaving, but she explains to him that she just simply didn't know how. She then talks about how originally, after her mother died, the deal Mac made with her aunt was that she would stay here for the first part of high school, but then when things start to get serious, she'd leave with her aunt to attend that fancy school. She then pulls out her mom's journal, a journal used to write down her deepest thoughts and feelings, which I feel like is kind of weird to have. Like, would you really want to have all of your mom's thoughts at your disposal? Especially if it goes back to like before you were born and around the time she met her eventual husband, you know what I mean? Regardless though, Mac reads from her mom's journal an entry that basically states that she wants Mac to become a great success and that she marches through life triumphantly. Despite this though, Brady tries really hard to convince Mac to stay, claiming that she can excel and find great success in whatever she wants. But it seems like things are final. Mac will be leaving, which of course only upsets Brady. I'm like fairly certain that this is the only kiss in the entire franchise. The next day, Mac is packing up her stuff when she notices her surfboard staring right at her. She just can't help herself, so she puts on her surfer drip, I don't know what the right term is, and heads outside to ride the big wave she's been excited about for a while. Brady had a hunch that she'd be there, so he went to the beach as well. We then get our first real surfing scene of the movie, and it's time I talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff of this. While obviously a portion of the surfing was done by stunt doubles, a lot of it was actually done by Maya Mitchell and Ross Lynch. They both had to take surfing lessons for their role, and I'm glad they did because having to constantly cut the cameras to hide the fact that it's a stunt double would have been annoying. And later on we get much more emotional scenes in the movie that to me benefit from actually being able to see their faces. Mac is really in the zone right now, and everyone is watching her shred it up. Or is that more of a skateboarding term? I don't know. At some point though, a storm starts to pick up, and so because of this, the lifeguard blows his whistle to alert everyone that it's time to come in. Thing is though, Mac is a little too locked in right now. She really wants to get this surf done before she has to leave. So, fearing for his girlfriend's safety, good guy Brady rushes to the scene on a motorboat to try to save Mac. And even though he tells her multiple times to not surf on the wave, she does so anyway, causing her to wipe out. And well, she dies. And that's the end of Teen Beach Movie. No, let me stop. Okay, Brady goes in after her, but they both kind of disappear for a bit. And when they pop back out of the water, it seems like the storm has settled. After they grab Mac's board, she and Brady argue about what just happened.
This is the part where you tell me I'm your hero and then you shower me with kisses.
No, it's not. This is a Disney movie. The arguing stops, however, once they start to hear music and realize that they aren't in Kansas anymore. Instead, it seems like they're trapped in a movie, that movie being West Side Story, aka Brady's favorite film. We then get the first song of the movie, Surf Crazy. I've never really reviewed a musical on this channel. The closest I've ever come close was Starstruck. So I would love to play some of this song, but I don't think I can. So I'm gonna play a pitched up, perhaps even sped up version of the song, and if that doesn't work, and I still get claimed, then I'm gonna trim the segment out. So if you see an abrupt cut in this video, you know why. I think Surf Crazy is a fine song, but what impresses me the most is the production behind this scene. Out of all the Disney Channel musicals I've seen, which is like 4, I don't know. This scene is probably one of the best in terms of how well it's put together. Everything from the set pieces to wardrobe, the people in charge really put on a masterclass. Also worth pointing out is that for the first time we are introduced to Tanner, played by Garrett Clayton. The only way to explain his character is by saying he's a character, but we'll talk about that more later.
Matt, we're in the movie.
What movie?
My movie, West Side Story.
Mac was able to watch an entire musical sequence of the movie West Side Story and still not know what movie it was. Clearly, she has not watched this movie. Remember this. Her and Brady naturally have completely different reactions to this. While Brady is super ecstatic to finally be in his favorite movie, Mac has a normal person reaction and is wondering how this is even possible. After the Surf Crazy musical number is done, the characters in the movie notice Brady and Mac, who are, almost quite literally, fish out of water.
What up, dog?
Far out. He thinks we're animals. And where you cats from?
Oh, so cats is okay, but dogs is weird.
Alright, that's pretty funny. Brady and Mac introduce themselves as a couple from far away, but not that far away. Their words, not mine. They get interrogated by Seacat, played by Jordan Fisher, aka Impulse from The Flash. A lot of you guys get mad when I only mention one thing an actor has been in, instead of that obscure movie or show that you also know them from, so here, have bro's entire filmography, leave me alone. The interrogation stops though when a bunch of bikers enter the Big Mama's restaurant. The main beef between these two is a classic case of turf wars. The bikers want the surfers gone so they can have this place to themselves, while the surfers want the bikers gone for the same reason. This is clearly inspired by the Zeke and Luther episode, Roller Dork, where the skaters want the roller skaters out of their main hangout, ramps. But things take a turn when Luther falls in love with a skater whose name I don't remember at the time of writing this.
Anytime, BRB.
That's short for Big Red Bunny.
No one cares.
I imagine this is how most of you react when I reference Zeke and Luther on this channel. Mitchie, the leader of the rodents, comes in on his bike and the whole gang assembles around him. And they start to square up the surfers.
I thought you surfers was all washed up.
Yeah, cause clearly you just drifts.
You should make like the ocean and wave goodbye.
Hold on, they were kind of dropping some crazy bars there. Good night. That wordplay is insane. Is this how all dialogue in movies like this back then were? I have to start watching them more often. Genuinely, I think the oldest movie I've ever seen is like The Aristocats, which was from 1970. Underrated film, by the way. Literally only a few minutes after the first song, we're already introduced to the second, and arguably the most popular one, Cruisin' for a Bruisin', an obvious reference to the Sweet Life on Deck episode of the same name. I'm assuming you guys all know what this song sounds like. This is actually one of the only things that I knew about Teen Beach Movie going into it. That's how blind I went in for this review. I remember seeing promos using this song, and I think the one they sang at the end of the movie. Again, I think it's fine. I like the instrumental more than I do the singing and lyrics.
Bubblegum, cherry pop, go to the hop.
What?
Watching this scene made me realize that Ross Lynch might just be a better dancer than he is actor or singer. He's not a bad actor, he's just very Disney Channel, so when he's in a Disney Channel format, like Austin and Ally, it's easier to hide. And then as for singing, I'm sure he's improved since he's been a teen, but again, he's not bad. He's just not great either, in my opinion. All 4 members of Big Time Rush clear, sadly. I'm not saying this to hate on his performance in this movie or anything, by the way. He's doing a good job. I just think his dancing gets overlooked. That's all.
Don't go away. We'll be back with a Disney Channel movie. We're back with a Disney Channel movie.
movie with the robot who drank liquid from an abandoned spaceship, turned into a vampire middle school teacher who taught the entire school to salsa dance, and then went on to win the regional championships?
Hold up, you sure that ain't a Bailey School Kids book? There's a bit of a dilemma right now. Mac, rightfully so, wants to get back to the real world because her future depends on it, whereas Brady wants to stay in the movie so we can have fun. Eventually though, he realizes Mac has a point, so the two try to figure out how to get back. Considering a storm likely caused them to enter this world, they figure that the best thing to do is wait until the storm that comes at the end of the movie occurs, because hypothetically, that might be their best way out. In the meantime though, much to the dismay of Mac, the two will just have to spend the rest of the time they have left in the movie. You know, I see a lot of guys who grew up with this movie talk about Layla and Mac being their crushes, but so far, I've seen almost zero love for her. Giggles, played by Molly Gray. I don't need a biker, I don't need a surfer. If you could do this? Anyway, speaking of Layla, we're formally introduced to her. Turns out she's Mitchie's sister, and what makes it even better, she's not racist to surfer people. Matter of fact, in the next song, which is called Falling For You, we see this put to action. Or at least, we were supposed to. See, earlier in the movie, we see how this scene is actually supposed to play out, with Tanner catching Layla and the two, well, falling for each other. But now, things have changed. Thanks to the two of them being there, the timeline, if you will, has been altered to Tanner being too distracted by Mac to catch Layla, which leads to Brady catching her instead. Thanks a lot, Brady. Now you started an all-out war between Atlanteans and the Amazons and caused Bruce to die in that alley, not his parents. Brady and Mac take note of the fact that they changed the events of the movie, so now none of the other characters really know what to do.
I'm gonna ask you something, even though I know and I know you know.
I know you know. Is that a Psych reference? This is the part where everyone tells me in the comments to review Psych. Do y'all really think a Psych video would perform well on my channel? Y'all don't even want to see me talk about Rugrats. Now that they know it is 100% possible to change the events of the movie, Brady and Mac try to see if the bad guys who are supposed to build the storm they need to get home are still in fact trying to build it. Because if not, they're cooked. They head to the bad guy's lair when we're introduced to Dr. Fusion, played by Bertram, and Les Kamenbert, played by Steve Valentine, who you might know from I'm in the Band. And he was in an episode of Psych. See, I told you it was a Psych reference. Brady goes on to explain their plan. They want to take control of Big Mama's restaurant because they know it'll be worth a lot of money. So after numerous attempts to convince Mama herself to sell it to them, they decide to create a weather machine to create a storm that'll be so bad it'll make the bikers and surfers want to go away. Then they could turn it into a beach resort and relish in their infinite money glitch. So this was something that I really had no idea about going into this film. I swear they just never advertised this part of the movie in the trailers and promos. If y'all would have shown that Bertram was in the movie, maybe I would have watched it. That's not true. I definitely still wouldn't have watched it. But someone might have.
And this thing never won an Oscar.
I think Mac probably has the best lines in this movie. Right now, I like her way more than I like Brady. Their plan now is to make sure the movie gets back on track so the storm they need to get home happens. And the only way to do this is by making sure that Layla and Tanner fall for each other, like the original version of this movie. So the two get to work to try to make these two characters fall in love, but of course, this only leads to another song. The song is called Meant to Be, and it's mainly about finding a partner that matches your every need and stuff like that. But the issue is that even though Brady and Mac are singing about Layla and Tanner think they're singing about themselves, which just makes them want to date the newcomers. This song is just kinda alright. The good news is, besides that one song we get in the very beginning, most of the music actually has been pretty passable. After their first attempt doesn't go as planned, they decide to wait until the next scene of the movie, which involves all the boys hanging out at Big Mama's and all the girls hanging out at Layla's house for a sleepover. Before they leave though, they spot something interesting. Mac's surfer drip has seemingly disappeared, and the two deduce that this is due to that kind of clothing not existing in the 60s. This means that they need to hurry, because considering that they did not exist in the 60s, the same thing could happen to them. At the slumber party, Mac questions why everything Layla and the girls do is for boys, instead of doing things for themselves. This, I guess, is supposed to elucidate the change of mindset from the 60s to now. Though considering that this is a movie world, I guess this is really supposed to be a reference to how girl characters were written in the 60s versus how they're written in the present. I say I guess because I don't watch 60s stuff, aside from Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and most of them didn't even have female characters besides the Flintstones and the Jetsons. Mac questions why they have to wait for a boy to ask them out instead of just asking them out. After all, girls can do anything that boys can do. The theme of this scene and this whole subplot in general would have hit a lot harder if the beginning of the movie actually dealt with Mac getting flack from male surfers about being a female surfer. Naturally, conversations like this are only going to come when you have a girl from 2013 go back in time to the 60s and see what the social norms were like then, but when you really think about it, this scene isn't necessarily a one-on-one parallel with Mac's main story from earlier. Like, okay, it kinda works, but not enough to justify the rest of the film's story. Mac's issue is that she felt pressure from her aunt and potential thoughts from her mom about what's best for her life, but ultimately, she should want to do whatever she wants to do. I mean, after all,
It's your life. You can decide what to do.
this scene and that line were totally meant to be in reference to Mac's main conflict, but to me, those two situations are not similar enough for me to accept this as a parallel. So far, I actually like this movie, by the way. I just think there was not much of a correlation between Mac's conflict and the way she, spoiler alert, eventually solved it. Meanwhile, in the B-plot,
What are you trying to do?
It's this game I play where I shoot stuff and I try to hit that angry bird.
Wait a minute, angry.
a conversation about women between Brady and Tanner leads to my favorite song of the movie, Like Me. Everything, from the production to the lyrics and back and forth play between all the singers, perfect. Best song of the franchise right here. In this song, whenever Brady and Tanner are singing, they talk about how they personally handle interactions with girls. Tanner's mindset is very outdated, whereas Brady's is very modern. In a good way though, not one of those, where my hug at type of dudes. It is a very cleverly written song. It's a little confusing to sing, especially that chorus, but man, it's so catchy. After the song, Mac questions if they'll ever be able to get Layla and Tanner together. But Brady, even though he does want to go home at some point, isn't in such a rush. They figure the only way to get them together is to make them spend time with each other. But, naturally, no Selena Gomez. One thing that is interesting about this movie is that basically every other dude at some point has their shirt off except Brady. And apparently the reason why is due to Ross Lynch's young age. He was only 16 during this movie, whereas the rest of the cast were over the age of 18, so they were allowed to. This could also be why they didn't want Ross and Maya kissing, since Ross was 16 and she was 18 or 19 depending on how long filming lasted. While this is likely the case, I can't help but point out that in Jump In, there is like a 5-year age gap between Corbin Bleu and Keke Palmer, and they kissed. There was roughly a 4 or 5 year age gap between Cara Crane and Luke Benward, the Minutemen, and they kissed. I mean, it is obvious that Disney, I guess, learned from their past because they were doing some pretty crazy things back then, but I do think it is interesting to point out how much the network changed in terms of stuff like this in a few years. Mac puts in some serious work to get Tanner and Layla together. She finds out that Tanner doesn't even have beef with the bikers. The only reason why there's so much tension is just because that's how things are supposed to be. And then later, while talking to Layla, she finds out that she's actually always wanted to learn how to surf. And Mac tells her that even though there are people, such as her brother, that want her to not become a surfer, she shouldn't let other people tell her what she can and can't do. Alright, the correlation between Mac's plot and them going in a Wet Side Story is slowly starting to appear. I still don't think it's a great way to handle it, but I'll let it slide for a Disney movie. Mac tells Layla that she'll set her up with Brady for surfing lessons, but in all actuality, it was a trap. She's actually just trying to make her go there so she can trick Tanner into meeting up with her. Will it work? Maybe. Unfortunately, we have to go to the villain subplot though.
Hugh. What about me? Not who, Hugh. Me what? You said who. No, you said Hugh. No, it's not who, it's Hugh. Yes, I know it's me. Why would I not know?
Okay, whatever. Mac sees a big laser hit the water, which means the villain's plan is working. But before they can do anything about it, they realize that because of how long they spent in the movie, they are slowly becoming part of it. You know, this movie really is just a reversed version of Fat Albert, and that's kind of awesome. One way this becomes evident is that they can no longer resist the urge to sing. So yeah, they sing a song about how they can't stop singing, and it kind of slaps. Not only is the song good, but the scene is really cool. The set pieces coming in, the choreography. Do you smell that? Someone cooked in here. I mean, this is so refreshing considering the last DCOM I watched. Actual thought and care was put into this movie, and you can see that in this scene. Man, if this is just the first one, I can't wait to see what they have in store for the sequel. Fortunately, it looks like Layla and Tanner are finally starting to spend time with each other. Unfortunately, Brady and Mac have a very villainous encounter.
Brady!
Oh snap! I didn't know this movie got down like that. Nah, let me stop. Layla and Tanner start bonding over the fact that they have interest in exploring the other's hobbies. So they sing a reprise of Meant to Be. I already talked about this song. They become a couple again though. Timeline restored. Welcome back, Bruce Wayne. Towards the end of the song though, Tanner notices this gift he gave to Mac on the ground. From there, they put together that something bad must have happened to them. So they rush off to Big Mama's to get help. Through a beautifully scripted speech, Layla and Tanner are able to inspire the bikers and the surfers to put the beef aside and come together to save Mac and Brady. And together, they charge to find their two new friends. At the lair, Mac and Brady have a heartfelt conversation about all they've gone through the past few days, and it eventually leads to Mac confessing that she isn't all that upset about how things have transpired. After all, it was this experience that prevented her from going on that flight to that nerd school. That's not what she called it, I just made it up. She realized that this whole time she should have been taking the advice that she's been giving to Layla about doing her own thing. Yeah, Mac, man, forget your dead mom, follow your heart. That's crazy, I don't know why I said that. But yeah, take your own advice.
When it's meant to
Oh my gosh, y'all just sang the song! The two tell Bershon that he's not actually real and instead he's a movie character. And because of this, he starts to gain consciousness. He's woke now. On top of that, I'm the Band guy spots the other teens who have miraculously found their hideout. So they start to power on the machine, but just then, all the characters from West Side Story rush in to save their new friends. And chaos ensues. Brady and Mac are untied by Tanner and Layla, and the rest of the gang destroys the bad guy's lair, meaning the movie is officially back on the right track. I don't like that smile. What they gonna do, hang him? Layla uses her bobby pin to dismantle the machine, but gets shocked. Fortunately, her new boyfriend Tanner was there to catch her. And somewhere, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is seething. Oh, looks like they just tied the bad guy to the machine. Phew! Man, they went out like Wile E. Coyote. That's crazy. Release Coyote vs. Acme, by the way. Thanks to movie magic, Mac and Layla are right where they're supposed to be in order to go home. Before they leave though, they're surrounded by the entire cast of West Side Story, bikers and surfers alike. Mitchie thanks the two for saving Big Mama's while everyone else tries to convince them to stay. But, understanding that they do really have to leave, Layla gives Mac a friendship necklace. A necklace that simply means friendship forever. Everyone hugs it out and the two real, actual humans head back home. So, one thing this movie never really explains is how the two actually get to the West Side Story verse to begin with. Like, it's implied that it has something to do with this family surfboard that has powers or whatever, but they never really go into it like that. And honestly, I'm not even mad. They don't need to. It's not important. And I'd much rather them not explain it at all than write themselves into a hole or a set of rules that they have to keep consistent for the entire movie. The writers of this movie graduated from the Teen Titans school of not explaining stuff, and that's not an insult. Teen Titans for the most part was a much simpler show compared to the other DC animated outputs from that era, so they didn't really explain stuff that wasn't immediately important to the story, such as most of these characters' origins or civilian lives. I would love to make a video talking about how that wasn't always a good thing, but my audience does not want to see me talk about animation, so Mac and Brady managed to surf their way back to the real world, seemingly picking up right where they left off. Because of this, Mac is given another opportunity to finish her surf, and she does so. Might I say, triumphantly, just like her mom would have wanted. Everyone celebrates Mac's epic surf just for the mood to switch immediately once her aunt comes into frame, but this time, Mac's got something to say.
My mom wouldn't want me to be successful like you. She'd want me to be happy doing what I love. Like you are doing what you love, but it's not what I love.
I'm trying to read between the lines.
Yeah, and you're Bella Thorne, apparently. She don't want to go to that trash school. She wants to be a surfer and stay with Brady and Grandpa Max. Anyway, they hug it out, and because of all the positive emotions, everyone busts into a musical number, and this scene makes no sense. I obviously understand Disney wanting to end this with a song, but this is the real world, where musicals don't actually exist. So how do all of these regular people just know all the words and choreography? I'm assuming this has never happened in this world before. But then, two people briefly go into an alternate dimension, and now suddenly everybody and their mom turns into Jared McCain. Look, I get why they wanted to do this ending. I just don't think... Man, whatever. It's a summer paradise, cruising with the boys and girls. Alright, movie's over. During the credits, we get some bloopers. Those are always fun. But what matters the most is that, like a comic book film, we got a post-credit scene teasing the cult classic sequel that everybody loves, Teen Beach Movie 2. Oh boy! A man sees the West Side Story crew come out the water and enter the real world, channeling their inner SpongeBob movie. He asks if they need help, and he hands him his phone that for whatever reason has a picture of Justin Bieber on it. Just already loaded. But how exciting is this? The West Side Story crew is in our world now. Great. I'm sure that'll be a really fun experience.
Best Western is a proud sponsor of Teen Beach Movie on Disney Channel.
So, I don't like musicals. Matter of fact, the only thing I think is worse than a musical is a Disney Channel musical. Despite this, I actually did like this movie. I think it's legitimately good, and I didn't think I would come out with that opinion, but hey, here we are. The movie is, in case you couldn't tell, a parody / love letter to the old beach theme movies that were very prominent in the 60s. And yeah, admittedly, I don't know much about that world. I did, however, watch a lot of Gidget with my mom growing up, so that's like the only beach related stuff I have any memory of. Despite this though, I do feel like they probably did a good job in capturing that era, even down to the stuff that potentially hasn't aged well. One of the things I liked about this movie, and I mentioned this before, but it genuinely felt like they tried while making this. For the most part, everything was really well thought out and executed. I'm sure the cast and crew did a lot of research on the films of that era. I also liked how committed they were to making the film inside the West Side Story movie feel as movie-like as possible, even down to playing around with stuff like the characters only being able to react like their characters since they haven't been written any other way. They can't experience pain or anger unless they've been designed to do so. Or even smaller stuff, like transitioning in the scenes immediately, since there was never anything made to be in between them. It's stuff like that I wouldn't have questioned if they didn't include, but because of the fact that they did, I'll give them props. As for the characters, you know, it's interesting. Ross Lynch gets the top billing credit in this movie, but I feel like that's only because he was an established Disney star. Make no mistake, this was Maya Mitchell's movie. Not only was the main conflict hers, but she played a bigger part in solving it than Brady did. There's about a 7-ish minute stretch in this movie that not only is one of the most important stretches, but it also has 0 Brady screen time. Despite this, it manages to set up the film's third act and, as a result, ends up getting the two surfers home. It starts with Mac and Tanner surfing, then cuts to Mac finding out Tanner doesn't even have any beef with surfers, which leads to the Mac and Layla scene where Layla tells Mac that not only does she not have beef with surfers, she herself actually wants to surf. That scene sets up Mac telling Layla that Brady will teach her tomorrow at the beach, but obviously that was a lie to get her and Tanner a chance to bond. Of course, that scene leads to them falling for each other, which puts the movie back on track and ultimately allows Brady and Mac to return home. Then, in the middle of all that was the villain subplot, which I don't even really need to explain. Brady is still an important character though, because him being a fan of the movie justifies the plot point of them entering it, and his expertise on the picture is what helps Mac even get the idea to put Layla and Tanner together. But in terms of actually locking in and moving the plot along, Mac did more than anyone else. I'm glad they went that route because Mac is actually an interesting character, whereas Brady is just a slightly smarter Austin Moon, but with a love for musicals, not just music. Layla and Tanner were fun additions to the film as well. I love how stupid they are sometimes.
Mac! Brady! We are here to save you. Look at that, Brady. They got together all by themselves.
We're here to save you.
I don't care.
You don't? Hey, you know what?
No, I don't know that either.
I've always wanted to ride a motorcycle.
Are you serious?
No, I'm Tanner.
I don't know why, but for some reason I thought that Jordan Fisher played a bigger role in this movie. It's most likely due to him probably having the best career out of everyone here post Disney. But yeah, I was definitely misguided with that one. All the other West Side Story characters were cool, but I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about them when they're so one-dimensional, even though that was the intent, of course. I will say, this movie being a parody and even purposefully corny saved it for being lame and cringy. Other Disney movies, I usually have a reaction like, this is so stupid. But with this movie, it's too self-aware for me to have that reaction, and because of that, I actually thought it was clever. That's why I didn't like the ending, because it just reverted into being a regular musical, the same musicals that I make fun of. And then obviously, speaking of music, the soundtrack for Teen Beach Movie was pretty good, honestly. Like Me and Can't Stop Singing are probably my two favorites, with my least favorite being Oxygen, the one from the very beginning. Sorry, Maya Mitchell, but you missed with that one. But in terms of actual West Side Story songs, then Meant to Be would probably be my least favorite, just because they kept spamming it. The songs in this movie were all pretty memorable though, and unfortunately, a few of them will be stuck in my head for probably the rest of my life. As for negative stuff, I don't have that much to say, honestly. The second act kind of drops a bit, and I feel like the third act wasn't grand enough to warrant such a drop. Also, the bad guy plot was not it. I get it was supposed to be a parody or whatever, but I personally felt like it was just a cheap way to shoehorn a storm into the movie. Plus, unless I'm completely wrong, I'm pretty sure Beach Movie from the 60s did not have these kind of plots. So, I also just don't like Ross Lynch's voice. No disrespect, I'm sure it's deeper now. I just don't like it. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't really care for Brady. Like, there are some aspects where I relate to him because, well, if I got sent to the world of like Zeke and Luther, I wouldn't want to leave either, but I don't know. Overall, I think Teen Beach is a good movie. I get why people like it so much. Cool songs, cool characters, coolish plot. I'm gonna give it a solid 3.1 out of 5 stars. At the end of the day, it's still a musical, and I just don't like musicals, so that's always gonna knock it down a peg for me, but it is good. I would ask you guys what you think of the movie, but I'm pretty sure you already know, so I'm just gonna skip to the whole subscribe if you're new, don't forget to hit that like button, and see you guys hopefully next week for Teen Beach Movie 2. The movie I don't really hear a lot of people talk about. I'm sure there's a reason though. I'm Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.